June meeting of the Webster Township Board of Trustees to order at this time. Those of you willing and able, please stand and recite the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In your packet, we have the draft minutes of the May 21st meeting of the Board of Trustees. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to review these minutes. Are there any corrections or amendments?
All of the minutes as presented.
There's a
Support.
Okay, further discussion on the minutes is presented. Okay, those in favor of the May 22nd Webster Township Board meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Supervisor's report. Wow. I've got a few remarks on the parking lot. It's been kind of a large undertaking in terms of operations of the township. We have been able to maintain those throughout, and we will continue to do so. It appears on Monday, this coming Monday, we're going to move on to the next phase of parking, and that will be that the concrete lot, as you see it today, will be available to park on. It will not have lighting. There will be no recycling. The recycling bins are going to leave between now and Monday morning. And you need to use extreme caution because this parking lot now is laid out slightly differently than the old parking lot in terms of some little bump outs and landscape areas that were not in existence before. And hopefully we'll have some caution barrels in place so that you will notice that. I really want to caution you, we have a planning commission meeting a week from tomorrow night, next Wednesday night. And if it goes late, there aren't going to be lights out there. So use extreme care when navigating the parking lot. If you do have any questions about the parking lot or use thereof, just let me know. We'll only be using the main entrance. We will not be using the secondary entrance because that's going to be part of the construction over on that lot.
Mr. Kingsley?
Yes?
Comment on lines? Will there be lines?
There won't be lines out there yet. I don't know exactly when they're coming, so it's not like it's going to be overcrowded, I don't think. There will be lines there within the next month.
Okay.
The only other thing that I have to comment on is we had our EMAR audit. We're required to visit properties, and the assessor has to go through annual updates of the database on each individual property, adjust land values, building values, and so on. And the state is in a rotation coming around and reviewing our work every 5 years. We had our audit 2 weeks ago, and we had a clean audit when we actually get the letter approving our endeavor by the state. We'll have Bill come in and present what he had not only completed, but also what their review comments are. Not our neighbors, they didn't do quite as well. We have an agenda in front of us. Do we need to make any changes to the agenda?
Yes, for new business, letter G, the meeting, special board meeting to discuss private roads, could we move that to first? That way
Make
she
G
can
A.
further. Yeah, G
No, I don't think we can.
Do we have visitors regarding A and B?
We also, regarding A and B, we do, and
12A and 12B.
we do have for those, yes.
I would suggest we move this to C then.
Okay. Is C okay? Shall we?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting confused, but I'm handling this. Okay, we also need to add the current Watershed Council membership dues and as K, not K Strobel, but letter K, even though she's our representative. That is Huron Valley Watershed Council.
Huron River, right?
I'm sorry, Huron River Watershed Council invoice or membership. Okay, anything else we need to do? I believe that we can delete the presentation of Washington County Sheriff Jerry Clayton. He was supposed to be here tonight to discuss the county-wide village that's called a public safety millage, but it's primarily a mental health millage. He does not appear to have a representative here, so for now we'll cross that off. Number 9.
I'll move the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor of the agenda as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Call to the public. If you wish to speak, please step forward. Use your mic, and use up to 3 minutes of your time and our time to tell us whatever you wish to tell us. Give us your name and address, please.
Hi, Mike D'Angelo, 7373 Webster Church. So I'll try to make it short. I just, let's see if I can put this kind of delicately. Okay, so having come to a couple of meetings, I'm not quite sure about why it seems to be that a lot of people who speak are kind of like hostile to the people who are trying to do this kind of very much highly uncompensated and difficult job. I actually wanted to talk a lot about street because, so having been around here for 30 years, weirdly enough, a lot of things before you showed up were not particularly wonderful. And the ordinance itself, there's a lot of problems in it, really. But that really, it's like, okay, so when my wife started teaching, she was hired to teach sex ed at Novi. And there's a requirement that there's supposed to be a sex ed curriculum, and there was not. So she decided, she asked, what do I do? It caused such a commotion because there was such like a fervor over whether they should even have one and different things. And she actually wound up getting fired, and her union got her job back. But I think a lot of that is what I see with street. It's not really like, because Shri is telling you that there are problems does not mean she created the problems. I don't think any of you created the problems. I kind of remember when they enacted the ordinance, and it seemed to be kind of a package from somewhere else. problems show up only when there is a problem, but that doesn't mean you caused it, are not working to fix it, or have any kind of like animosity towards the rest of us. So, and I don't necessarily agree with everything the board has done over the last 30 years, but you know, I do, and like the planning commission was the same thing. It's like, from what I heard, they get a tiny stipend to do something that basically I would want to do, because it just sounds very, very difficult. So that's pretty much it, really. Other than that, I did look at the. I know you guys aren't going to do the chicken or the animal ordinance. There are some things that I think that don't seem quite fair. I'm sure it'll all come out, like when you have more meetings and things, or don't really quite work. But again, it's better to be thorough and good. I mean, I've been an attorney for a long time and like worked for the courts and interpreted statutes all the time, and it's to take the time to make it clear saves a lot of hassle later. Like you don't really want to be in court for things that look what do you call it that are ambiguous or any of that stuff. So I guess I put in a personal plug to like Paul, because if you're looking at chickens, he would be the expert. They ran the 4-H thing with my daughter. So anyway, I guess that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. Peter Stevens, 7500 Trotters Lane. So I made some notes here. First, I read over the proposed language for the personnel, or the public expression of personnel draft. And looking over the language, it struck me that a lot of what's being put in that is limiting constitutionally protected language. I can understand from your position how you may want officials or employees to refrain from exercising their First Amendment right. However, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I think it might be unconstitutional to put some of the language in the ordinance that you are presenting. If we find ourselves in a position where an elected official or an employee is saying things that we find reprehensible, I think it's our duty as voters to find people that better conform with our values, or you as our elected officials to bring proper discipline in those situations and find people that are more principled to put into these positions. Second, I know you're talking about the keeping of animals draft this evening. I believe back when this was first identified and discussed, the issue with the amendment was that the language was identified as just a flat-out error, the 5-acre minimum. It's now been over 3 years, I think, since this was originally proposed, and at this point, the board has declined to do anything about it, except now it has been kicked to the planning commission. They've taken action. Now that they have, they're being told that it's not appropriate. Also, in this discussion on the memo of this keeping of animals, there was a suggestion that people who purchase properties knowing, quote unquote, that their adjacent property couldn't have animals, I feel is unfortunately misinformation that those landowners were operating off of when they purchased that property. It's been proven now that you can have animals on less than 5 acres covered by right to farm in Michigan. So people may have gone into that with an expectation that wasn't the reality of our ordinance or the laws of Michigan. Also, I would suggest that people who came to this township and bought 5 acres of land assume that they have 5 acres of land, not 4.5 minus road right-of-ways and such. Also, there's more than just educational desire for keeping animals on smaller plots of land. During COVID, people just looked for opportunities to be more resilient in their personal lives. Keeping chickens, keeping an animal for wool, Any of these things can be something that increases the resilience of someone's personal life by utilizing their property. Finally, I was reading over all of this, and there were a couple comments about what the planner is doing. I spoke with Shri through some emails today, and it was something I didn't know about, that Shri is our planner and zoning administrator. And I guess my question at that point is, what's the purpose of Tom Neal and the Planning Commission? I've seen planners in other communities where there's a planning department. And I guess just with a planning commission that's been appointed, relationships that community members have made with those folks, I don't see what the point of a planner would be in Webster Township. Those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Others? Okay, seeing no further comments, I will ask Ms. Pfeiffer to please come forward and tell us about our sanitary product.
Okay,
You can start with your last name.
Oh, yes. Good evening. I want to introduce myself. My name is Kristen Polanowski. I'm a CPA, and I have been with Pfeffer, Hannaford, and Polka for over 15 years. Pfeffer was my maiden name, so that was correct too. I worked on the audit, and I will be presenting the 2024 audit report this evening. First, I just wanted to say how much we appreciated all of your assistance with the 2024 audit, especially John, who made sure that we had everything we needed to complete the audit on time and within budget. Yes, John, sure. I am pleased to report that we are issuing an unmodified opinion. This is the highest level of opinion that can be issued by an independent auditor. We are stating that your financial statements have presented your financial position fairly in all material respects. Again, these are your financial statements that we are issuing an opinion on. Okay, so I just wanted to mention a few key things. If you would turn in your packets to page 48, this is the general fund. This is the main operating fund of the township. On this page, I just wanted to highlight 3 key things. First, you are able to stay within budget. All the expenditures were within budget. You are able to transfer $100,000 out of this fund into your capital improvement fund. And third, while transferring out this $100,000, you were still able to maintain a fund balance of almost $4 million. And if you could turn to page 31, there you will see the amount of insured funds. The treasurer was able to maintain FDIC insurance coverage of 100% of the township's cash and cash equivalents of $7.9 million. And you were able to earn over $240,000 in interest without risk. This is really good. I also wanted to mention that the township has no debt. This means that you can budget for current operations and projects rather than paying down debt. Also, during the audit, there were very few proposed adjustments, meaning that you are getting accurate financial information throughout the year. And lastly, there is another $344,996 of ARPA funds that are not represented in your fund balance that is available to spend. That means theoretically you have $4.8 million in available funds as of March 31st, 2024. So on that note, I want to thank you for having us as your independent auditors. We really appreciate working with you. If you could please approve the audit report tonight, we would really appreciate it. And please let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions or comments from board members?
Just a thanks to our treasurer for keeping us on target.
You're welcome, Michelle.
No questions, no comments? Looking for a motion? Accept it.
I move we receive the annual audit and forward it to direct the auditor to forward it to the state official.
Second.
Okay, any further comments? Roll call vote. Shelley?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Alex, please step forward. Alex Zucker is the, I don't know, whatever he does at.
Project manager for T&M.
Is that mic on?
Testing, here we
Is
go.
there a green dot on the other?
It's on, but
Is
it's,
it on?
it's just a little away. Alex is a little taller.
There we go. All right, where would you guys like to start?
Well, let's first begin about the need for, well, first of all, the problem that some people have had with concrete because of EPA changes, and let's talk about the sealant to go with that problem.
Yep, so in 2022, this type 1L cement started becoming more regulated and used to add more limestone in the mix and eliminate, to reduce the amount of cement, to reduce the carbon footprint. EPA is putting on these regulations. So therefore, the more crushed fine limestone is essentially causing the concrete to be very thirsty and dry, and it sucks up a lot more water. So this type 1L issue is just started becoming ahead end of 2022, 2023, and now in 2024. So our supplier reached out before the pour and recommended that we add this CS25 cure and seal product instead of using just a standard MDOT spec. It's called like a WR Metals Cure product that just applies a white pigment over the surface, a wax cure. This product that we use, it provides sealant to help keep the concrete to hydrate and maintain its moisture through the hydration process. With the product this, or a product this size, it was a good idea to use because of the location and the heat, and just with the mass pours, it's kind of somewhat of an insurance, I would say. And Doan is a well recommended supplier, well known. They recommended we use this, and yeah.
Okay, any questions on the concrete curing sealant? Yeah, Dan.
So, you did add the C25 to the mix, or apply that already?
It's already applied, so there's one coat that's already applied. So the first coat essentially acts as, it replaces the cure, the white pigment, which is just a standard wax white pigment. So that first applicant is already down and it's protected. Then to further ensure the longevity of the concrete, we apply another applicant after that 28 days. And at that time, general rule of thumb, concrete is at its full strength, full design strength, and that's when the pavement markings will go down in the final CS25 cure and seal product.
Any other questions on this sealant?
How long have you been using it?
Doan has used it, we've never used it, yeah.
This is your first job with this sealant?
Yeah. And Doan is a very reputable contractor, and they wouldn't just recommend something if they didn't back it.
So in our packet, I doubt that you're aware of what's in our packet, but it seemed to me that most of the data sheets that in our packet were about additives that you put into the mix as opposed to on top of.
Correct. So in that email to, I believe it was you, John, would I send that to you with the pricing, I set the pricing for this TS25, which is buy the 55-gallon drum to buy it most efficiently. I gave him credit for the MDOT standard cure that was in our bid. Option 2, which is there were different additives to help with the curing process and the hydration of the type 1L. That was another additive that's added at the plant. That was more money. What you guys, I don't know if you guys are aware, if you guys don't know, but Doan, before we started pouring, Tom, who's the president, one of the I mean, he's not the president there, but he's the president of Michigan Concrete Association. He put in that, it's called a type, it's that finishing product that's in that spec sheet in the data at no cost. I can show, I have all the data sheets on all the low tickets. It's called the UF1L, I believe, admixture. He added that at no cost before. He just, with the size of the product, the project, and wanting to keep their name well known in the area, the Washington County area, they added it at no cost.
So is this a result of the size of the project? I mean, is this occurring with, you know,
It's happening all over.
residential?
I mean, I believe Jeff could probably talk more on this, but this is happening, and there's been meetings and ways, there's been committees on how to fight this type 1L issue, but AMDOT is allowing type 1L cement in their mixes because of the reduction in the carbon footprint that it's allowing. So it's, again, you'll ask a lot of engineers, some engineers don't know about it, some are aware of it, don't know how to fight it. We want to be proactive and, you know, I feel do the right thing and come up with a solution rather than this job scales in a year and then you're coming at me and saying what the heck happened, so.
Sorry, my question was, is it the size of the project, like a residential driveway or sidewalks, are they experiencing the same thing, or?
It's just, yeah, I mean, they are. Some just depends on how the mix is. It's finished, placed, cured, stuff like that. So it's happening on roads, it can happen on driveways. It's not necessarily a quantity thing, I would say. It's more just a, 10-yard, it could either happen a 10-yard pour or a 1,000-yard pour. The cement, there's just not enough data known with this type 1L yet to really have a real solution, so that's why we'd rather be proactive on applying this cure and seal.
I'm slightly confused. I spoke with, I believe, this Mike at Washington Engineering, and we had a conversation about doing the first and second coat of this 28 days apart. I believe I understood him to say that that was part of our base bid, and I'm getting the impression that it's not part of our base bid. Okay.
There, if you look on what I sent out to you, you will see that they gave us credit for the normal
one application product.
Right. Because otherwise it would have been 9,600 instead of 89.
So you have 5 or 6 drums of this material here. How much did you use on the first coat?
It was about 2 barrels, 2.5 barrels.
And I assume the second coat would be about the same?
Yes.
Any other questions on the ceiling? Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, John. Just I guess I'm curious why you're saying this is a new thing in the industry, but mentioning 2022 is when the standard changed.
They started implementing the type 1L end of 2022 and then into 2023. They're starting to seeing the effects of it later in 2023.
Yeah, it takes a while for the problems to show up.
It's called scaling.
Right.
Surface.
Yeah, I guess
It doesn't hurt the concrete, really. It's just,
I'm not allowing it because it's structurally, the concrete is still okay. It's just an aesthetic thing. It just looks like there's cracks and alligator cracks all through it. And sometimes some of it does flake off because the top is not cured properly and there's a layer underneath that is. So, but it's structurally, I'm not allowing it.
okay, I guess my question is why we're only discussing this today versus, 3 months ago or what have you.
That's, again, it's an ongoing thing. At the end of the day, I mean, I could bring up every problem if I wish I could find every problem, trust me, on a job, but this type 1L just started coming ahead this spring. Literally when we started getting ready for this job, 3 other projects, ongoing projects said, is there any way you can switch to using the type 1 standard cement? No, it's a supply issue. There's one supplier in southeast Michigan that's using the type 1 cement. Every other supplier is using type 1L. The only type 1 cement is coming from Turkey, and the only supplier is Hercules, and they're in Ypsilanti. We couldn't get concrete from Ypsilanti because hard, it'd get too hard, it was too far away, so. Trust me, if we could have used type 1, I would have.
Okay, let's move on to light poles.
Yep. So, the light pole issue, so the documents, the construction drawings are a little unclear, actually very unclear, what was going on in the electrical. So, I can pass around my, I don't know if you guys have, I briefly reviewed the meeting minutes, but you guys have the front page of my proposal, or the bid.
It's not in our package.
Do you want me to pass it around?
Okay.
Do you want it, or?
Yeah. Well, basically, I've reviewed the documentation, and the photometric showed the 14 poles. The list of materials on the bid documents was 14 poles. The bid that was submitted by T&M and others, Best and,
ASI?
yeah, all were for 4 poles.
So they all subcontracted it, not according to our wishes.
Yes. And the letter that T&M presented specifically said 4 poles. So I didn't catch it. Apparently, Washington Engineering didn't catch the discrepancy. So now we have a bunch of conduit pulled out. We have some conduit in the ground for the additional poles, and we have no lights. The request is for 30, we'll get to this later in the agenda, but the request from the electrical contractor is for $32,000 to include the other 10 poles.
Are you sure all the existing conduit is pulled out of the ground?
No. Some of it. If you take a walkabout, you'll see it.
So, I mean, I can kind of state, so basically the new plan shows 4 new light poles and existing conduit. The demo plan says nothing about pulling new poles or re-exchanging fixtures, wall packs, all that stuff. Our subcontractor spoke with Washington Engineering. I don't have any email, said, it was a phone call previous because everyone was confused. I have emails between my sub and I regarding what's the electrical scope. And she said, spoke with Washington. There's 4, they were told there was 4 new light poles only. Everything else is existing. That's why I clearly put it on my front page of our bid on March 4th. Again, I'm not looking to gouge big money, and then you can see I pass it through with no markup. All of my costs, I pass it with no markup. Not so much we like working with you guys. It's not my bid. I mean, I get that's your desires to have all these new fixtures and everything, but our job as a contractor is to give the most responsible, lowest bid, and that was directed to us, was to include the 4 light poles only. So.
Well, what concerns me, obviously the 32,000 really concerns me, but what concerns me the most is that more than one bidder came in with similar bids. And as I look at the bid documents, I can tell it needs 14 poles. But the bidders, yourself included, saw 4 poles. So there is definitely a discrepancy there, and we know that we need lights. You know that we need lights. It's a matter of how we resolve the issue. I'm not sure pointing fingers for blame is going to be helpful at this point. Comments?
just I'm not
No,
sure.
they're poles with a down fixture instead of, and they're clearly on the bid sheets. They're down fixtures and the double fixtures in some cases that were spec'd out. And the poles are more plain, modern looking poles than ours we currently have.
So they'll be putting the poles we used to have with the new tops in, plus adding 4 more poles. Correct? Is
No,
that-
we're talking about all new poles,
All new poles.
aren't we? We're just talking about the
So the
heads.
base bid, and I can show you the bid from MHM Electric. They have 4 new light poles, fixtures, and all new conduit to those new poles. The lighting plan
Correct.
shows the 2 wall packs and 1 light underneath the canopy, and then swapping out all the existing fixtures on the existing poles with new.
Okay, you are correct.
So using the old poles but with downward facing fixtures.
That is what was directed from who's the electrical manufacturer. They said that's what was, that it's applicable, it'll work.
And those will work on our existing poles.
That's what I was told. The poles are very expensive.
Well, these aren't really expensive poles.
The
They
new
do
ones
make
are.
expensive poles. We don't need to make a decision on this one until later in the agenda, but we do need to clarify what we're talking about.
So in addition to what we've already contracted for,
This
because
is,
of this confusion, this
yeah,
roughly $32,000 is going to be extra.
correct, beyond the contract that we've already agreed to.
And it wasn't just this contractor, it was misunderstood by all the bids they got.
I believe that Cadillac had it right. Theirs was $170,000 for lighting as opposed to 40.
Okay.
All 3 lowest
The
bids
other contract.
had the 40 to 45,000.
So John, just for clarity, if we do this, what are we going to end up with? What are new, what are existing with new new tops on them?
We're going to have 2 poles out by the road that are new. There's going to be I don't have the bid documents here. I believe another one out by the recycling area. I don't know where the 4th one is.
Real quick. Both approaches are getting new poles, north and south approaches. And John's correct, back by the recycling area, and I believe there's one in this road right here. For new poles.
Well, one of those is gonna replace the one that was broke, right?
It's actually, I believe, in a different location for
But
the
it's-
photometric.
But it was gonna be for a replacement for that one.
Well, it was not a replacement at that location, but out in that area where the cameras are and so on.
So if the photometric plan showed 14 poles, 10 of the others are on top of the existing poles?
Apparently,
Okay. Just trying to,
yeah, I understand. I should have those photometrics in here, but I didn't. Okay, any other questions of Alex before we let him sit down and relax for a second? Thank you, Alex. We're further on down the agenda for consideration of the. Okay, treasurer's report. Mr. Sharp.
1 second, please. to add to the comments from the auditor this evening. I would just highlight in the revenue and expenditures summary for the general fund, we're 2 months into the fiscal year, that's about 17%. If you look at the expenses on that summary, it shows a much higher expense percentage. That's due to the $600,000 transfer that we made into the CIP fund. If you exclude that $600,000 transfer, our overall expenditures for the first 2 months are exactly the same as what we budgeted for, 17% of the fiscal year. So we're not ahead, we're not behind, we're right on track as far as performance versus budget. Other than that, I don't have any highlights. I'm happy to address any questions or comments or advice you may have.
No questions? Looking for a motion.
I move to accept the treasurer's report and pay the bills as presented, as well as those anticipated bills received before our next meeting scheduled for July 20th of 24.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll support.
Further discussion?
Tony's first motion.
Yay!
Well done.
Thank you, sir.
Well, she actually amended the agenda.
Oh, did she?
Yes.
Did you make the motion?
Well, it wasn't the motion as such, just the addition to it. Okay, roll call. Let's start with Mr. Harmon.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. We have a consent agenda list of reports. I did send out the sheriff's report that I received today. You should have received it electronically, but I have not, we don't have a written report in the packet. That being said, are there any reports that we wish to pull out and examine individually? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll move to accept and file consent agenda reports.
I'll second.
Further discussion? Those in favor of accepting the consent agenda reports and file signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I don't know where it is. The parks, where is it? The thing is right there. Right on it. Thank you. You can block the window. Okay, last month we had the opportunity to have a presentation on from the Parks and Rec Committee on the master plan for the parks. We needed to not only approve that master plan, but to pass a resolution stating that we were doing so. In your packet, you have resolution number 12-24. I hope that you had the opportunity to read through that resolution. Are there any comments on it, or is there anybody that wishes to offer it up?
I guess the only comment I make is that it's a resolution to approve the plan, not the funding for it.
Correct. And the purpose of the plan is so that if we wish to go out for grants or something like that, we have an adopted master plan. And last year when we tried to do the economic development grant, we had to kind of scramble and the plan that we presented was not an approved plan, but it was a plan, not approved by resolution, but it was a plan that was put together quite well, but quite hastily to meet the requirements of the grant. By doing this, we have an adopted plan, and if there is grant money available to do certain aspects of this development, then we have the document already approved. And then
I'll offer resolution 12-24, resolution to adopt the park master plan.
okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? See none, vote on it. Tony?
Aye.
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 Okay, the resolution 1224 to adopt the master plan for the park is approved. Next, Webster Township policy and procedure. We have really two policies in front of us. One is 624, the other is 724. The first one is acceptable use of technology. Let's begin with that.
Do you want to move to accept it and then do discussion, or do you want to start with discussion?
Either way.
Let's start with discussion.
I've got a couple of comments, and I greatly appreciate Shelley's work on this, both of these policies. But one, I think these are just to help provide a little clarity, at least for me. And within the purpose, I think it would make sense to identify, I guess in a high level, these computer, email, internet systems that we may want to call them information systems, because much lower in item 4 procedure 3, we reference information systems, and it's capitalized, which typically means it's a defined term. So while we're not defining it, we're at least identifying what that would mean. So that's one suggestion that I have. So that would, be in friends, I guess, right after internet systems on the first sentence, information systems. And then I would also suggest we add personnel at the end of that sentence. So it's Webster Township personnel, as I don't think Webster Township itself is going to be writing emails.
Where?
The end of the purpose.
I don't know, it's not the LinkedIn invitation, AJ.
Well, and then my other comment is related to policy, item 3, the second paragraph, the last sentence, where we, or otherwise monitor all activities on the township's systems. So I would also suggest adding the township's information systems there. Those are my comments.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have one. For both of them, under scope, my question is about the definition of personnel. Couple of contractors that came to my mind were Treemore and Sri Planning, and I'm wondering, do we incorporate those into the scope of this? Seems like we should.
We can, I just don't know how we would clarify which contractors are responsible.
Contracted employees.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting specifics, I was, as a category, I just used a couple of examples to highlight a category.
What would you say that is a category, what would you call that category? Contracted
A
employees?
consultant or a contractor?
So that would include snow plowing, T&M.
Well,
That's
yeah,
If they use our computer or our information system.
Well, but he's saying for both policies, because personnel is defined also for public expression.
Well, let's just talk about 6. And then we can talk about 7 in the same parallel adoption. Let's get
So,
one.
or any consultant that utilizes our information systems. Does that make sense?
makes sense to me.
Personnel is defined as employee, appointee, elected official, or consultant performing business on behalf of Webster Township. Well, instead of performing business, utilizing Webster Township's information systems. Do you want me to read it again? This policy applies to all Webster Township personnel. Personnel is defined as any employee, appointee, elected official, or consultant utilizing Webster Township's information systems.
That sounds fine to me.
So we drop performing business on behalf.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on 6-24?
And is it possible to approve this today with the amendments? Okay.
Sure. We need a motion to do that, don't we?
I move to accept the Webster Township Policy and Procedure Acceptable Use of Technology as amended.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second?
Mr. Hunt? Any further discussion at all?
I've got a question.
Okay.
We typically have, and I don't recall if we had legal input on this, we typically have review for policy, new policies or revised policies.
Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, generally not.
What is your assessment of risk in that regard? Is it a worthwhile expenditure to do that, or do you feel comfortable with it the way it is?
I haven't performed a risk analysis, but I was just asking a question. I think this is fairly straightforward, but someone can always find something if they want.
Right.
The place they're going to find things to pick at is that item C, personal use, limited occasional and incidental use of electronic media, sending and receiving for personal, non-business purposes is understandable and acceptable. So my interpretation of that might be very different from yours. That would be the only place in there that I could see someone picking at it and calling in a lawyer. That would be that.
My limited might be 5 minutes and yours might be 5 hours.
Exactly. Mine might be shopping for shoes and yours might be looking for different kinds of paper.
All right.
You know.
But the good thing is that this is in here so that if there is a discrepancy where an employee is not, you don't feel the employee is performing well because they're spending too much time, personal time, then you can do a performance evaluation of that, and it's in policy. And then you follow through with the disciplinary.
Oh, I don't think we shouldn't accept it.
It was
Just
in
as
here.
a-
I'm
just as
not
remind us where you went to source most of this? Did you go to the MTA for data?
This acceptable use policy was already established. I separated out the stuff related to social media, et cetera, and I added in that you can't share passwords because it's causing issues, right? So, and that's a protection issue. So I just enhanced it a little bit with some security things. I think I might have added in, based on Shree's comment, no, that was not this policy, that was on the other policy. So this one was well established. I did look at some other acceptable use policies. I've written some acceptable use policies. So I tried to keep it to what we were already accustomed to, but just added a couple of security,
A lot of this was basically taken from policy 3-18. That particular policy was reviewed. There's nothing in here to say that we're rescinding it, by the way. Was reviewed by our insurance carrier
It does.
way back then. But a lot of things have changed in 6 years.
Yeah, there was some pretty old. It does say it. It says it supersedes all previous
Oh, I'm
policies.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Maybe we should put in parentheses there, 3-18. I didn't make the motion, so I can't do that. I could-
Oh, yeah, we can, I didn't make the motion either.
We're talking about amending it, so.
Yeah, an additional amendment. If you're asking about also where did I get the public expression of personnel, I did get that. I dug into MTA's website and I found some on MTA. I also dug around the internet and looked at some other townships to get their information, just to get some examples of the public expression of personnel.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to adopt policy number 6-24, titled Acceptable Use of Technology, with several amendments. Those amendments are in paragraph 1, information systems to be added after internet systems, and at the end of that sentence, personnel, under scope, delete performing business on behalf of, and insert information systems, insert word consultant, and then after Webster Township, add information systems. I guess I didn't make that real clear.
It's for consultant utilizing Webster Township's information
I'm sorry.
systems. Yeah.
Under policy, second paragraph, next to last word, add in information between townships and systems. And then on the last page, this policy supersedes all previous policies, in parentheses, 3-18, addressing acceptable use of technology owned, licensed, or operated by Webster Township. All that being read, that should be a roll call because it's policy. Aye. Mr. Sharp.
Aye. John, didn't Dan want a definition of information system?
We clarified that through the
Okay,
adding it in trends after the 3 items.
sorry.
Mr. Westman.
Aye.
Aye. Tony.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Policy 6-24 is adopted. Again, let's move forward on 7-24. Probably the same types of comments.
I have one question.
Okay.
There's a version in my packet, and there's something on my table, and they're quite different from each other.
They're
Oh.
actually,
The one with red,
Yeah,
this goes with this.
It was submitted by member of the public as something to consider, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
just his, I shouldn't say just, but his thoughts on the matter.
Correspondence.
I have gone through it if it matters, it's really not that different. It's just switched around some of the orders, but it's pretty similar.
we're gonna be working from the draft in our packet.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure, go ahead.
I guess open it up for discussion like we did with the last one.
The only comment I had was the same one that I had for the last one, which is to include consultants
Oh,
in
yeah.
terms of personnel under scope.
Yeah, we're elected, oh, there's a typo here. Personnel is defined as any employee, appointee, elected official, or consultant. Well, this is the issue, consultant performing business on behalf of the Webster Township. I mean, I suppose if a consultant could be seen as representing us, then that makes sense. It's just not that often they would be. You're excluded from it. Yeah. Okay. Or consultant. Anything else?
So Washington Engineering is our consultant. They don't have access to our information systems, but Sri Planning is our consultant, and she has direct access to our website.
Yeah, this isn't about the website or information systems. This is about representing us publicly, speaking on behalf of the township, but
Okay.
you're not authorized to.
All right, thank you for redirecting me.
So, I mean, it could happen, you know, particularly, you know, but.
Sri, did you have a comment on that?
I was gonna say, if you wanted to keep the different types of consultants township works with, I would fall under the professional services on-site consultant.
Well, we could have you working off-site and still do something injurious to the township's wonderful site here, so.
Like, I'm trying to draw comparison between me and IMEG. Ted also provides professional services, but he's never on site. He's an engineering consultant. So I'm like a hybrid, but I'm on site as well.
I think it's really just a matter of whether or not, we could leave consultant generally in there, because it's really about whether somebody would connect that person as a representative of the township in whatever speech they're giving, or whatever discussion is being had.
Such as Mr. London.
Such as Mr. Lonick, yeah, that could be, that's a potential. It is in a situation where we didn't authorize him to, you know, just, you know, that kind of thing, but yeah. So we can put it in there for sure. Anything else?
So we're adding or consultant, is that?
Right, it's
Okay.
an employee, appointee, elected official, or consultant performing business on behalf of Webster Township.
And that's different than a contractor.
Yeah.
I have one comment on C, within the example, the last line, the board, individual board members, I would add board. The board, individual board members for the township.
Any other comments? Seeing none, is there any type of motion?
Move to approve policy number 7-24 as amended.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
Thanks for doing this, Shelley.
Yes, thank you very much.
I would add that we probably have quite a few other ones that need to get revised, and I'm happy to do that if you want to prioritize what comes next.
Tony is the keeper of the book.
Let me know.
We'll get to that.
Okay, let's get something.
Okay, it is a policy, so therefore roll call.
Shelley?
Aye.
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 Okay, policy 7-24 is adopted as amended. In your packet, you have a memo from Sri on the request for some input for the planning commission to consider on the keeping of animals for their suggested revision of the zoning ordinance. Sri, do you want to speak to it?
I just want to give a brief introduction and then a little snapshot of distribution of parcels in Webster Township. I'll just do this. I know it's been a while the board looked at a draft with revisions to the current ordinance, but when the survey was distributed, I didn't include any draft. The questions when asked were not in reference to any draft. They were very high level, in general questions that came up in discussions and many of our residents' inputs. So the graph I just distributed just provides a big, like a snapshot of how the parcel makeup is in Webster Township. The first one is distribution of parcels by area. And I got these numbers with the help from the GIS technician at the county. And there are some disclaimers attached to it, but it at least gives you some sense of how they are. So 82% of properties in Webster Township are 5 acres or more. So the current ordinance allows animals on properties 5 acres with the caveat that it excludes right-of-ways and access easements. It allows animals on properties 5 acres or more. That's 82% of land area. That leaves us with 18% that currently animals are not permitted on the property. And then the second graph gives you a snapshot of the lots by number. So there are about 880 lots that are over 5 acres. That represent 82% of the township. And then we have about 1,190 lots within site condos that are less than 5 acres. So if the master deeds have any restrictions, then they may supersede township ordinance. And those also include R2 and BLLR. And then we have platted lots that are less than 5 acres with 1,000 trees. I thought this gives a good sense of, when people are talking about that it's being a rural township and the current ordinance doesn't consider a majority of properties in the township, I think this kind of gives you context that 82% of the land area are covered with the caveat, excluding the right-of-way.
But if I understand this correctly, that's 82% by area.
Right.
So it's not 82% of the residents.
Right, so that's the
Or
next
even
one.
at home. Yeah, so really, if we look at this, it's well over half of the population of Webster lives on less than 5 acres.
Yes.
No,
But
parcels
of
don't
those-
necessarily have a dwelling.
Well, okay, but still, 880 lots are over 5 acres and 2,193 are on less than 5 acres.
Right, and of those 1,190 are within site condos.
So like a,
Lock Alpine,
Yeah,
VLR, and all those.
Alpine's on site,
I meant subdivision or a site
subdivision,
condo.
yeah.
I hope that was helpful. With that, I think, John, however you want to move forward with this discussion, if you wanted to go question by question, I know not all board members have provided input. We can go question by question and see if there was, because the questions were pretty general, if there was something that could have helped you answer that differently or expand on your responses, I'm happy to just answer. So the first question was, the current ordinance requires a minimum of 5 acres net for keeping of farm animals. Should the township consider permitting keeping of animals on lots smaller than 5 acres? And we have a decent amount of responses that are in favor, with potentially limiting them to smaller farm animals.
We can't see the, I know we have it in color on our computer, but here we can't see
Oh,
the colors on the printout, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. So 40% of the responses.
I think it would be helpful if you talked in terms of number of people. The percentages is a little bit misleading. Thank you.
Okay. This was.
40% is 2 people,
Yeah.
but it doesn't include 2 people who did not participate.
Yes. So 5 people participated, and 40% is 2 and 2. 2 people said maybe smaller farm animals, and then 2 respondents said yes, we should consider smaller than 5 acres, and 1 person said no. 2 didn't respond. Anybody would like to add any comments on that question?
How would you interpret that then, Sri, if two folks didn't respond, you got 5 responses, so that would be 4 people think that maybe on the board, that maybe we should consider smaller lots.
Right.
How would you interpret that then?
So what I was looking at is, I'm not looking at the comments that followed the question were very helpful. So it's not just about the quantity or the the number of responses, but I was looking at the comments, and then when I provided a revised draft for the Planning Commission for consideration, it's posted online, I was trying to get a sense of, where the thoughts are. By letting the Planning Commission discuss further to see where they think makes more sense. It wasn't that, because 2 people said this, 2 people said this, it's a tie, I don't know what to do. It was more like, okay, I see a majority of people are in favor, 2 are maybes, but in general, it seems they're in favor. So I proposed something in the draft that is for smaller animals with some conditions. So maybe the maybes make the move to yes. Okay.
I think the follow-up questions are perhaps more telling
Yes,
than even graphs,
yes.
because the graphs just give the demographics.
Yeah, it's a standard one that was printed, but yes, the reason why the expansions to question ones are more helpful for me and will be helpful for the planning commission because it's not just yes or no answer. But the first question was just to help you get into the thought process. So the next question was, do you think using the gross lot area to determine whether a lot is eligible for keeping of animals is acceptable? The reason why the question was asked is the current ordinance says 5 acres net, excluding the right-of-way and access easement. And there were some comments from the residents who expressed concern that how would we know? Because if somebody's trying to find what the area is and they go to the Washtenaw County website or look at their survey, what they would get is a net acreage, the gross acreage, which includes the right-of-way. There might be some properties which are along public right-of-ways, which are just over 5 acres, but when you exclude, they come under a different category. So there were some comments from the residents saying, can that be kept simple by using gross instead of net to determine the eligibility? And that was the context behind that question. And two people said yes, gross is fine as long as densities are calculated or usable. One person said yes, provided densities are calculated after excluding wetlands and right-of-way easement. And two people said no, it should stay as it currently administered, excluding right-of-way and easement. So how I interpreted that is that it's like the answers are a little all over the place. It felt like the board might need a little bit more information and guidance to make their determination. So in the draft that was presented to the planning commission, all 3 definitions were provided in the memo, and then there was a little bit of context provided, what are the pros and cons going with one against the other. So that's my takeaway from that response, is that you're not quite sure. If no other comments? What areas should be excluded from the area calculation used for determining allowable annual densities? The last draft that came to you excluded the right-of-ways and private road access easements, regulated wetlands, surface water areas, principal structures, and all accessory structures. And a few of the comments we heard at the town hall meeting were that might be a little excessive, and to keep it simple. So I've included all the items that were in the previous draft, and I was asking you to figure out, think about what should be, what shouldn't be. And there was some favor towards right-of-way access easements and private road access easements, regulated wetlands, surface waters. And the accessory structures was a little bit all over the place. The first 3 were the wetlands and the surface waters are, after discussions with the MSU extension, they also said that, they usually don't include, they have the site categorization and they do want to protect the wetlands, and they don't include that in some of their calculations. So it makes sense. So the draft that was in front of the planning commission was proposed excluding the right-of-ways, wetlands, surface waters, and principal structures, and not accessory structures.
So Sri, in question number 4, it seems to me in every single case, a majority of the people that responded said that those things should be included.
Right, excluded.
Excluded.
Right.
In every single one of these cases.
Yes. So the only thing, right.
Sri, I'm sorry to interrupt you. What was the far right of the page didn't print?
Right. So that's minor accessory structures less than 250 square feet, large accessory structures greater than 250 square feet.
Okay, and what was the other, was it a no or not sure? The far right?
The first one is yes, the second one is no, the third one is not sure.
They're all yes on that list.
Well, it's a PDF, you can't move it.
Well, there's 4 out of 5.
What was the decision of the fifth person? Was it a no or a not sure?
Because it's 4, not 5.
Oh, I'll have
It
to
must
check.
have been not sure, because
Right.
if you look at this one, they're right on top of each other.
That's correct.
So it should be not.
Good deduction.
I was thinking these were all 5s.
Or you're saying, oh, okay.
Do you see what I'm
Got it,
saying?
yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, thanks, John. John, that's a good point, but I think the draft I put together for the planning commission was kind of trying to find a balance between these two so that they can figure out if they wanted to raise the standard or, make it easier. So in the usable area calculation that's in front of the planning commission only includes the first 4, excluding the accessory structures. The next question, 5, what should be the minimum net acreage required for keeping poultry? I know this is a very general question and a hard one to answer, but thank you for trying. But I think what my takeaway from that response is that everybody kind of is in favor, in agreement that poultry can be allowed on properties less than 5 acres, maybe not sure between ½ acre to 2 acre. So the draft that is being presented to the planning commission makes a recommendation to proceed with caution because 2 seems to be a comfortable number, so anything less than 2 can be a conditional land use subject to planning commission so that we can monitor the interest. If there is considerable interest, we can always go back and revise the draft, but the draft that was there was kind of like proceed with caution kind of recommendation for poultry. Anyone would like to add anything more? Question 6, what should be the minimum net acreage required for keeping livestock? 5 acres, depends on animal size and social structure. It's complicated. I think it depends on how much livestock is on the property. Can one cow live on 5 acres? Not sure. 5 acres. So what my takeaway from that response is that there is a good agreement that the potential nuisance or the care or the size it takes for poultry versus livestock is definitely different. Although there is some favor towards poultry on smaller acres, the keeping of livestock is almost towards let's keep it at 5. But there are certain comments and discussion in the previous planning commission meeting that made a reference to livestock related to 4-H or similar educational programs. So the draft that's presented allows for poultry for 2 acres, but then allows for livestock only if there is sufficient documentation that it's for a 4-H related purpose. And again, the one in front of the planning commission is just kind of a draft that's in the middle. It is subject to their discussion to see how they would like to extend it or keep it the way it was recommended. And my recommendation is just based on the board surveys, not what I think the density should be. Question 7, what do you easily understand? What is the, I think I was messing around with 2 questions and messed up with grammar. What is, according to you, what is the easily understandable method for regulating animal densities? So I had an extensive discussion on that with Ryan Coffey at MSU. Each has its own pros and cons. Animal units makes more sense for large-scale commercial animals, so which is why MDOT relies on it. But it has its own enforcement challenges when applying at a local level for a resident. So then we toyed with we looked into the idea about number of animals per acre, which seems to be the most favorable one, and then animal unit equivalent. After looking at different ordinances, the animal unit equivalent makes more sense if you have multiple categories in acreage, like if you want to say 1 to 2 acre, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. But the proposed draft is an attempt to keep it simple. So we went with number of animals per acre. Okay, question 8. In your opinion, which surrounding land uses are less likely to be impacted by nuisances related to keeping of animals? The reason why I asked the question is because we are considering the idea of maybe a conditional land use. This kind of helps the Plan Commission figure out, what kind of impacts we need to look out for, what are the most affected, what are most likely to be impacted by nuisances. And then this one says, the first one, for example, if a property is surrounded by farmland preservation lands, then majority of people said it impacts less because your adjacent property is a preservation land. There are not people there. And then the second one was primarily residential. So there it was more towards high impact and medium impact. And then the third one was primarily agricultural, substantially undeveloped. People said it's less impact. And the fourth one was planned neighborhood, which is like site condos or subdivisions. The majority of responses were saying high impact. So my takeaway from that responses is that there seems to be less concern if a property is adjoining a preservation land or a large agricultural land. Then the concern is more for if it's surrounded by residential neighborhoods or lots, houses that are closer to us. So to address that, the draft proposes some additional setbacks when you have livestock facilities, and it proposes some enclosure standards to address potential nuisances from animals. Questions, comments you'd like to add? Question 9, what do you think of the requirement to get neighbors buy-in when having larger farm animals? This question came because Mr. Coffey from MSU Extension not suggested, but mentioned that some communities say that as part of a conditional land use, they say that, okay, you are less than an acre and you want to have certain animals. Make sure everybody that abuts your property provides a signed letter saying that they have no objection. It is unusual, but with regards to keeping of animals, apparently that is something some communities have looked into. But he did say proceed with caution with that one because those are mostly used by communities which have larger, it's even rural than Webster Township. My takeaway from these responses is that it's not met with much love because understandably there are certain concerns about how it is enforceable, what happens, are you taking away rights of the future property owner when he comes in and he doesn't want to abide by it. So I think that's a fair concern.
I don't see any love there.
Yeah. Yes, there's no love there. But I think which is why we put it as an option when Planning Commission is considering keeping of animals on smaller acres as an option which they can consider as a condition, but not by default requirement. With the, yes, I think that was it. Question 10, what type of permit is required for keeping of animals as permitted by the ordinance? None, which is consistent with the existing ordinance. We don't require any permit for keeping of animals. We have standards and we expect them to comply. And then the other two options were provided was permit exemption verification. I included that just because there was some concern about how would you calculate usable area, how would one know how many animals they can have and such. So I was offering that if somebody has a question about what they can have, what they cannot have, we can provide them, we can help them with that calculation and determination at no charge. and there was one person thought that would be a good idea. Okay, 2 more questions. Question 11, for keeping of animals on site smaller than minimum required acreage, what do you think is an appropriate procedural requirement? So there was one of the comments from one of the members of the working group that said there are always special cases. It doesn't make sense for them to go to ZBA because ZBA follows very strict hardship requirement when looking at variance. So it should be more of a discretionary. What if somebody kept for themselves 1 acre property and put the rest of the property in a farmland preservation and he wanted to keep animals? There's no impact on other people. It doesn't make sense for them to go to ZBA. So that's why that question was asked, and there seems to be a little bit of not sure, and then a little bit of maybe special land use permit subject to board approval, and then maybe conditional use permit. So my takeaway from that is, okay, we will start with the conditional use permit, because special land use is extensive, has multiple steps. You have to go to the planning commission, come to the board again. So we thought we will try. So the proposed draft proposes a conditional use permit or subject to planning commission approval. Any questions, comments? Okay, last one. The last one was just share any additional thoughts you would like to expand. If something I didn't get to ask that you wanted to talk about, then I had some comments which are, some are consistent with what my discussions with GAMS and MDOT has been, and some I do acknowledge that the questions were very high level. Sometimes it might be a challenge for you to respond because it's kind of like not very zeroed in on a specific item. So with that, the Planning Commission will be reviewing a draft at the next week's meeting, and copy of this responses was included in their packet. If there's anything in addition to that the board would like to add, please give me some guidance today, and I will take that to the Planning Commission at the next week's meeting.
Comments? I think this body should deliberate and send back a voted on directive. I don't think that we should rely on this. I would like to say 3 in your packet. You didn't talk about it at all, which is a shame because I think it is the excellent portion of it. It's the decision tree.
Oh, I meant not talk about now, yes.
But I frankly, and I don't mean to be rude, I don't find much value in your report, but this particular page is outstanding. I find it excellent.
Okay. Thank you. I did put up quite some time in it. The reason why I didn't expand on that is that would come more up for discussion when you actually have the draft, but thanks for bringing that up. I can just, if you would like, I can go over that briefly.
You don't need to do it for me. I just wanted to give you that positive feedback.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go with the
Yeah.
Oreo?
Yeah, it's definitely an Oreo.
It was reviewed by Mike Wozniak and Ryan Coffey at MSU Extension because I want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding or misinterpreting or misrepresenting anything. There were only 2 comments they made. For the second question where it says, is the site compliant with all applicable GAMS? Mike Wozniak said, I should change that to, is the site conforming? Because they're not regulations, they're guidelines. And then also to, I think that was his one comment.
Given the small sample set of the survey and the disparate answers in the survey, I find it very difficult to draw any conclusions based on this data. And I think this body has a responsibility to deliberate on what kind of feedback that this body wants to give to the planning commission. Do we want the ordinance to be more or less permissive? Do we want net or gross? I'll just speak frankly. I think that the most important feedback is that the ordinance should be simply understood by anyone with an 8th grade education. It shouldn't be more complex than an 8th grader can understand and explain to somebody else. I'm not inclined personally to make it more permissive because I have great sympathy for all the property owners, not just the people that want animals. I am inclined to be more permissive on poultry,
Just poultry,
just poultry.
so not rabbits, not goats.
Not meat rabbits, but I don't think that I would regulate a pet rabbit.
I was talking about meat rabbits. Guinea fowl, is that poultry?
So I have a problem with guinea fowl because they're practically impossible to contain. But they are poultry.
They are noisy, or can be.
Don't we have a noise ordinance? Well, don't we have a noise ordinance that covers?
They aren't going to be that noisy, they're more of an irritating type of noise as opposed to loud, fun noise.
And that's their asset, that's when people get them. Because
They
they're
let
loud.
dogs?
Well, no, they chase away, they sometimes use to protect their chickens, or, because they're loud and they,
They're an alarm animal that eat ticks.
yeah. But they do travel. I don't think we should be more restrictive. I think, I've already seen and read the updated version, so I have lots of feedback about it, but my opinion is that I'm not gonna invest in the feedback until the planning commission has a chance to review it and see what they say, because whatever I say might be circumvented by what they say anyway.
Do you think that this represents the opinion of this body as a whole?
I think that it does, because, truthfully so, when the ordinance came to us in March of 2023, we didn't agree on these things, which is why it didn't get moved forward. We still don't agree on that.
So I personally think that, not maybe the worst outcome, but one of the worst outcomes is they work hard again, develop language, send it to us, and we don't accept it again. I don't want that outcome.
There's no perfect answer to the animal ordinance issue. The most important part of it is that we engage the public and we engage the different boards who are responsible for responding to issues with it as they come up once it's passed, and enforcing it and making sure that that perspective is included. Nobody is gonna get everything they want in this ordinance. Right now, I don't like it, but it's not because I think it's a bad ordinance, it's because I happen to be one of the people who can't have a rooster, and I think that's ridiculous. My property is completely appropriate for a rooster. I don't want to enclose my chickens in a covered cage. There are things in there I don't think are good for my property, but that's me. I'm one person, and if you look at this, I'm in the very low percentage of people who I have between 3 and 4 acres. So but there will probably be plenty of things in that ordinance I'm not super happy about, or I don't approve of, or I don't like for me. It's not only about me. It has to go through lots of people and vet through lots of people, and we have to accept that not everyone's going to be happy, but that we all have a chance to look at it and make good decisions for the community, for the individual people who live in the community, and for the township not to get sued.
I disagree with John's analysis in terms of what we learned from this document. I think the most important part of the document is maybe not the responses of 5 people, 6 people.
5 people.
That answered the questions. I think the most important part is that there were some very specific questions asked about what needs to be in the ordinance. I think that's probably the most important thing out of this as opposed to the answers.
Pick one and let's deliberate on it.
How many acres you want?
I'm fine with the existing 5 net for anything that's not poultry. And I'm inclined to say something on the order of 1.5 or 2 for poultry.
I could buy that, put that into the ordinance. I would agree with that.
I also think that it doesn't matter what your neighboring parcels are, we should be talking in terms of district, zoning district.
Yeah, that's why if I'm zoned agricultural, why does it matter how many acres I have to put chickens on it?
Because we have many, many parcels in this township that are zoned ag that should not be zoned ag. They should be zoned residential.
That's a historic problem.
It's a problem that needs to be fixed, in my opinion.
I agree that it needs to be fixed, but that's not an easy task.
I mean, if I'm in a residential district, I shouldn't have a 30-foot setback, side setback. That's silly.
If I am, but Ann Arbor allows chickens.
I don't care.
But we are a rural area.
I'm not saying I
People
don't
purchase-
allow- I don't-
when
I'm not
purchase-
saying-
When people purchase
One person at a
agricultural
time.
Yeah.
property to be agricultural, if we allow cities to have, if cities are allowed to have chickens, it seems reasonable that we would be able to have chickens on small pieces of land.
Webster Township Board and Planning Commission, working together and working independently, determines what this township is going to be based on citizen input to the master plan. We don't have in our master plan anywhere that we want to emulate Ann Arbor. When I say I don't care what Ann Arbor does, it's because I care about what we want to do in terms of following the master plan, which is following the citizen input.
Which is that chickens should be on less than 5 acres.
And I agree chickens should be on less than 5
And-
acres.
And the citizen input is often, Ann Arbor allows chickens, why don't we? There are much smaller pieces of property
I can
in,
give you 1,000 examples of places that offer things that we don't offer. That's not a compelling argument to me.
it's a compelling argument when we say that cities all over the state of Michigan allow chickens in very small
And
pieces of
cities
property.
all over the state of Michigan don't allow chickens. I've done my own analysis. I can make a list just as long of cities that don't allow chickens.
But we're not a city,
Expressly.
we're a rural township where the expectation is that you're
I
going to raise
understand that.
animals.
That's why I don't think talking about what cities do is relevant to Webster Township. What's relevant to Webster Township is what the citizens have told us time after time in master plan inputs and in surveys.
And we just said that the citizens are saying exactly what I said. We just agreed that the citizens are saying they want chickens, and the citizens are saying cities have chickens, why can't we have chickens in a rural area?
And I agreed with you on
So,
chickens.
so we
But
agree,
not because of Ann Arbor or any other city.
all cities, cities in general, where
Other
livestock
board
isn't allowed.
members? Mr. Harms, you're smiling too much.
I was just enjoying the back and forth. I think we need to wait and see what comes from the planning commission and then work from there. This has been out there for a long time. I think a lot of board members have made comments about it regardless of whether or not we've got a finished product. I agree, it's not gonna be, I mean, no matter what we do, it's not gonna be 100% that's gonna satisfy everybody. Everybody on this board or everybody in our township, flat out. I mean, there are just people that will want something different. You find that out with zoning, you find it out with everything else. We put our best foot forward, we do what's best for the citizens and what they want, and we try to make it work. And I think we need to have something that we can work with to do that, and let the planning commission do their work, and we put comments into it. We've had time to make comments about it. I think everybody here probably has. So let them try to put all that together, plus the public comments, and let's see what we get. I think this is the cart before the horse here. Let's get the document so we can see it, and then let's get it done.
Mr. Westman, sir.
I believe that we can be less restricted than we are today. I certainly, I made it very clear all along that I thought chickens were something different from other forms of livestock. I would certainly agree that properly maintained chickens would be fine on 1 acre parcels, and certainly anything bigger than that. A lot of it has to do with how they're maintained, how they're restricted, and so on and so forth. It's when you get into bigger things, like goats were mentioned. And this is where I think the planning commission is going to have to come up with something different from what was presented in the past. That was, as I remember, it was very, very permissive. And there were allowances in there that simply would not be acceptable in, on small parcels. But I do think that there's room for discussion here. Where I do not agree is that there is a faction that thinks we should just do away with all township regulation other than the nuisance ordinance. And I think it's pretty clear from the comments from the representative from MSU Extension that townships should not do that, and that they should maintain regulatory control over parcels that do not meet the standard of the Right to Farm Act. And it's very, very clear that demonstrating commercial activity is part of Right to Farm. And that's, I absolutely believe we need to stay with that. That's what surrounding jurisdictions have done. And so I think that option's off the table, but I do think maybe on 3 acre parcels you could have a couple of goats or a couple of sheep or something like that, but not 10 cows. So I do think it should be based on the impact that the animals have both on their own environment and also on the environment of adjacent properties. I think people would rarely say that everybody has property rights, not just the people who want to maintain animals. And there are plenty of people who would be very, very unhappy if somebody with a 2 acre parcel put a 1 acre pig pen on it and put 10 pigs in it. So I think we have to be mindful, as Mr. Jarr said, that there are competing interests here, and we need to do our best to address all of them.
Tony, do you have any comments? Yes, I know.
I just think that maybe it's too rigid.
You could use your microphone.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. I think that maybe the ordinance, the way it's written now, is too much one size fits all. And I think that's come out in just this little discussion. I mean, a chicken is not a goat, is not a cow, is not a horse. And we need to modify that one size fits all to fit the community that that particular parcel is in and the needs of the animals. And when I say community, I mean the sort of nuisances that these, like the 10 piglets will create, the smell, have this stepping or graduated scheme that allows for the keeping of the little girl who's got her chickens, you know. She's not, we don't want to create scofflaws. And when we have an ordinance like we have now that's so rigid, we just sort of look past the folks who are breaking the rules, so to speak. We're turning them into lawbreakers, scofflaws, because of our ordinance. And we don't want to do that if it is necessary. That's how I feel about it.
And so I believe we do need a zoning ordinance to protect everybody's property rights. And I also can support smaller acreage. However, I believe that whatever animal it is needs to be contained on their own property. Some of the incidences that we've heard from were, a result of neighbors complaining, animals on their property versus staying on their home property. So there has to be, language and requirements, whatever those are, to ensure that those animals remain on their home turf, so to speak. And that will hopefully eliminate many of the complaints that have occurred over the years.
Thank you. I hope that this gives the planning commission a little bit of, gives the planning commission some guidance on what we don't want versus hopefully what some people are willing to accept. Mr. Harms.
I just wanted to point out, we've done a lot of discussion about farm animals, chickens, cows, whatever, but the animal ordinance also talks about domestics like dogs. And that kind of stuff needs to be taken into account of what's practical and what people have, because I know that there are more people that have more animals or more dogs on the lots than what is permitted. I mean, I've seen it, and it's,
So
you
you're
can talk about
right now?
No, you can talk about dogs or cats or whatever kind of animal that is a pet. That needs to be considered too, and that's the kind of thing that needs to be revamped in what we're talking about. So I didn't want to just put the focus on farm animals or producing animals, but on pets as well.
Shree?
Just a little update. So you're right, the current ordinance talks about 3 things. 1, keeping of farm animals, and then 2, pets, domestic pets and domestic pets, and then 3 talks a little bit about nuisance. And the constant recurring feedback we got from MSU is to keep the nuisance related standards in the public nuisance ordinance, because using a land to keep animals is a land use related thing. That's why it's in the zoning ordinance. But how you keep the animal, how you take care of them, how you restrain them, how you keep them contained is a nuisance requirement. And the current draft does remove the limit for dogs and cats, because it was discussed very well in previous discussions. So the current one acknowledges that, and it does proposes removing the limit on pets. But the recommendation that went to the planning commission also says that, okay, that they should recommend that the board update the public nuisance ordinance along with the keeping of animals, so that, what we are doing with the zoning ordinance aligns with, the nuisance requirements as well. And then just a small note, procedurally, you've already sent it back to the planning commission. So the ball's in their court right now. I appreciate the intent to discuss in great detail at this point, but that ship has sailed. The detailed discussion should have been done before the motion was made, before you send it to planning commission. Right now, what was sought is a general idea about, how you feel about smaller site acreage or restrictions or conditions. based on which the survey questions were drafted and the responses, even though I wish I had 100% responses, I think they were good enough to give me at least a general idea where the board is leading. So the draft that is presented to the planning commission is much simpler, shorter than the previous one you've seen. And then I have color-coded areas where it talks about numerical requirements, so that everything else kind of gives you a framework, but it also gives you an opportunity to decide, okay, I want this to be more restrictive, or I want this to be more purposive. So it will be easier discussion when it comes to you at the next meeting. With that, thank you so much for taking time to complete the survey and talking about it today.
John, I have a question for you.
Okay.
You received a couple of different iterations of data from the sheriff, I believe.
No, there were two of the same. I heard,
One was without the removal of dead animals or something?
yeah, and the numbers were identical.
Okay. I'm not sure I understood that data.
Just
I
those were
didn't really get a
complaints.
takeaway from that data. Is there a takeaway there? Are we having a lot of complaints about barking dogs? It seems like we might be.
We've always
We,
had.
the sheriff's department, I mean.
Yes. We do have a separate ordinance that's outside the nuisance ordinance on barking dogs. However, they did not in any way filter barking dogs from animals at large. They
Small.
just gave us the annual.
We did let go of the barking dog ordinance, and we included those those regulations, we incorporated those in the public nuisance with the last amendment.
Okay, they can,
Right,
but we got a standalone.
but we did also say that if you have issues with barking dogs or biting dogs outside of business hours, or even during business hours, this first call should be to the sheriff department.
But in terms of the data that they filtered, they didn't have any way of telling us exactly what happened in each of the 26 cases that they reported.
It doesn't seem like any action happened.
Well, we didn't see.
Somebody may have shown, come to the call, but.
Well, they typically don't give a ticket to the.
Right, there's been no citations, right.
You know, the cows out there are gonna give a citation to it.
I didn't find value in that information.
It was what was requested.
Yeah, okay.
Let's move on to new business, T&M electrical contracts. In your packet, you have a proposal from MHM Construction, LLC, and it has to do with two canopy lights under the canopy and one wall pack over a sign for $5,700, and new post fixtures and slip fixtures for the existing poles at $26,300. Comments?
What is a slip fixture, and does it direct the light downward?
The fixtures will all be fixtures that are in the cuts, are they not?
Sorry, in the what, the question?
The fixtures are all the down light fixtures that are in the cuts, is that true?
I believe they're on the plan, yeah.
They're all down light.
Yeah.
The main reason, one of the main reasons that we're doing this is because our current fixtures shine the light up. We want the light shine down.
I believe that there is a sheet in there on lighting fixtures.
And I didn't look to see how does this fixture compare to the fire station light?
Same, I don't know in terms of the actual fixtures, but in terms of function, the same downlighting function. Now,
It's not
I
going
would
to
say
be nearly as
downlighting-
high.
What's that?
It won't be nearly as high.
No, they're
No,
not.
how?
They aren't going
Probably down the light.
The photometric still has them overlapping.
is, we gotta get it done. I mean, we have to, we need to do that, we need to get the lights replaced. So I don't see that we have much choice with regards to this. I don't think that it's excessive compared to what the total cost of our project is. But it is what it is.
Yeah, and to Jeff's point, had they included it, they all would have included the same, they all missed it, except for Cadillac, and they were, crazy expensive, so.
Other comments? Any kind of motion?
I move to accept the proposal from MHM to provide the, I don't know if this has a number on it.
Two
But it's-
canopy
it's-
lights, one wall pack.
Yeah, 2 canopy lights, 1 wall pack, and the lot price for the new post top fixtures, the slip fixtures for the rest of the lights.
I'll support it.
Further discussion? Roll call. Where did we end up last time? Arms.
Aye.
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 Okay. Contract is approved. Next, we have quite a packet here, but the sealer that we've been talking about tonight is this C25. The total cost of the 2 applications is, after the credit given for the sealer that was bid, is $8,903.20. Discussion.
So just, if I understand properly, they've already applied half of it? Okay. So we're leased in for half of it?
Well, not necessarily. You don't have to pay them for it. Somebody's got to pay for it.
So the increased line dust is causing the product to cure quicker. It's drying out quicker, that's right. And the stuff that we had sprayed on, it really is, I mean, it's a coating. It really looks like more of an epoxy that's going on. It's got a,
It's an acrylate.
yeah, the texture. I mean, I think it'll go a long ways to helping. It's a good feature, I think. I mean, it's unfortunate that we feel we need to do it, but I think it's a good feature to have. I think one of the concerns, John, that you're talking about, if they use 2 drums and we're talking about 5,
I watched them apply it. It wasn't applied uniformly.
yeah, well, I didn't walk through the whole thing, so I
Well,
don't
they
know.
had to apply it a section at a time,
Yeah.
because they laid the different sections.
It's one man with a wand.
Yeah, and
It's not like a machine that's putting a curtain.
someday it will be, but in terms of the next application, if it's done on a day when the parking lot is not in use, first of all, they're gonna have to clean it before they do it, after we use it the next few days. And they will have the whole parking lot to do it one time instead of individual sections. And I'm sure that Alex will put his best people on it.
Yes, sir.
The only,
I would just like to say, I'm extremely happy with the work so far. I'm really very happy.
The only other question I have with regards to that is that we have talked about getting the seams caulked, and that's something that needs to happen. Will this product cause a problem with the caulk adhesion? Nothing? Okay.
Is there any type of motion?
So the 5 barrels covers the first application and the second one?
And the second.
And then remind me, what is the product we're using on our expanded parking area?
That's not, it's asphalt.
That's asphalt. Okay, so we're going to this issue with that.
But we're gonna
We
want
might have
chip
chip
seal.
seals.
Well, of course.
You might have different issues.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve option 1, apply cure and seal product CS25 concrete sealer. 2 coats, 1 at the initial laying of concrete, the second every 28 days.
I'll support that.
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Tony?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Next, property inspector pay rate.
No.
Geo.
Could I ask a question?
Oh,
While he's still here, do we want to ask him about sealing the cut lines?
We'll need to do that.
Can you educate me about sealing the cut lines?
Talking saw cut, control joints, or expansion joints, or both.
The saw cuts.
It's just, it prevents water intrusion. It's good practice. It's not necessary, but it does help with longevity of the pavement. I mean, water's detrimental to pavements. We tell people to try to, a job this size, cost is very minimal, but you guys already put this much money into it. I think it's a good idea. Definitely, at least the expansions and the low points, and the drainage is, but as water and snow melt get into the concrete joints, it just causes to, pop over time, or, various aggregate pop outs, but
You do have one corner out there that's broken off that needs some attention.
It's going to be epoxy. It's
No,
where there was a cross cut.
little saw cut.
And Alex, there's a little concern about the drive coming in, it lowers down and there's supposed to be a swale from that low spot out. Do you know when that's gonna get dug? Because it is pooling water right there on the new concrete.
we probably just haven't finished all the dirt work. It's too high or too low?
It's too high right now, nothing can run off.
They filled in the dirt on Friday and Saturday, and it's my understanding there's supposed to be a swale. It's right at the entrance near the road.
Yeah, I talked to Mike about it today.
Yeah, you can tell, you can look and see there's mud stain on the concrete where the water pools. You couldn't get off.
Yeah, we're not done with this. We need the dirt, some of the dirt from this phase to fill all the islands, and we can touch up before we do our final restoration.
They just filled it in, so I was just concerned that, we're getting water sitting there. So,
Could you give me a sense of magnitude grossly? Are we talking $1,000 to seal these seams, or $10,000 to seal these seams? I don't understand the order of magnitude.
I don't know how many square, this is 40,000 square feet. $6,000 to $7,000 range, I would say.
Okay.
and how
That
long?
can be done anytime before winter?
Anytime.
All right. Thank you.
And have, you noticed any other, or any pooling, ponding elsewhere in the
There was a little bird bath right out here.
Not concerned.
well, that's good.
Are we ready to move on? Okay, you have a letter in your packet.
Thank you.
From Mr. Nieper, who is our property inspector for assessment purposes.
John, I think we're moving the special board meeting
Yeah.
schedule up to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
Thanks, Alex.
Let's move back to C, new C. Special board meeting. Discussing roads.
Was there not a survey on this?
Yeah, 29th
Monday.
at 7 p.m.
Can we make it 6:30?
Anybody that can't make it, not that doesn't want to, but can't. Okay, let's set a special board meeting for July 29th, 7 p.m. One item of discussion. Private roads.
I won't be here, but I already told her that, so.
Street,
I don't know if one item of discussion is more appropriate, because we do have 4 applications who are some are seeking variances, some are seeking board approval because it's a major private road. So there are going to be 4 items at minimum. However, I was hoping if I could get an opportunity at the next meeting, the regular meeting, just to give you a little snapshot of the existing road inventory so that you are kind of get a heads up before you jump into discussing those private applications. Just so I can give you a heads up on what's the existing, where the confusion is, what's the existing inventory out there. And then the goal of that meeting from July 29th is to review and make a decision on those applications, and then maybe in general give some guidance as part of your discussion how we would like to reconsider the ordinance. Because all those residents are lined up to attend the meeting and to present their case. I won't be talking the amendment at that meeting, but I'm hoping to give a little heads-up introduction at the next regular meeting, and then we'll discuss the private road applications at the special meeting, and then I'll bring back a draft at next meeting.
it's complicated.
Yes, to say the least. But all those 4 are waiting for response because they need to start construction or get their log splits or do something, so that's more time spent. Ideally, it would have been better if we amended it and then considered those, but they've been waiting for quite a while.
I don't think we should do both those things at the same meeting. I think we should do the long-term strategic stuff at the special meeting, and we should do the individual petitions at a subsequent meeting. I think
4 petitions at a regular board meeting.
it doesn't have to be a regular meeting, I just don't think it should be at the same meeting. Personal opinion.
It's gonna be a long night if it's 4 animal discussion.
Well, there's more than 4, but we've got to deal with the long-term solution of this problem, which is a bigger issue than any individual issue that may be presented.
Agreed.
I think that John may be right. It may be too big of a bite for one meeting.
But if I may,
We need to,
they came to the last meeting, and then at the meeting we said we're going to schedule a special meeting to talk about their applications. And
well, we could do 1 maybe, but
Yeah, now 4 did.
not 4.
pretty,
3, we need to get sleep after midnight some nights.
I need
We think it's
all
gonna
I've been
take more
dealing
than-
with is private road applicants for the past 1 month. I'm a little backlogged on the permit applications because these people keep calling me, coming in, wanting to talk about
That's why you
things.
get paid the big bucks.
That was not in the private roads, was not.
We don't think 3
forward on
hours would be
Tony.
enough.
Do we want to tackle one applicant at the next regular meeting?
And then-
Okay, that would be part of the solution. Get 1 out of the way. Perhaps do 1 at the special board meeting while we're talking about the higher level, how to deal with private roads, and not try to do 4 any given day. We aren't ever going to get through 4 in a day.
I personally would like to focus on the long-term strategic topic at the special meeting, if we wanted to do one application, I would be willing to do that.
Well, let's try to plan accordingly. Try to do one next month at the regular meeting, and then one the night
You
of the
could have two
special
special
meeting.
meetings.
And then, we'll see what we do with the other two after that, I guess. I think the planning of how to deal with these private roads is going to be a major undertaking.
I agree with you, and based on our timeline, will take many, many months to resolve. In the meantime, though, there's 4 residents who've been waiting months already for us to resolve it. So addressing them and making them a priority doesn't change anything. It doesn't make the process move faster for us to fix the overall problem. I would rather see their decision made first, I think.
Yes.
They've already been waiting.
Sri, is the access road maybe the simplest?
So I have Valley View. That could be a little bit of discussion because it serves more than 3 lots, and the fire marshal is making some recommendations to upgrading it, and the applicant was requesting to accept it as is. And then I have the access road on non-territorial. That could be a simpler one, except the applicant's not providing me with drafted drawings because it's an existing one and he already did. But at least he needed some guidance. And then I have another one which is a new lot split, new road. All they're asking is for deferral of construction and design. Those 3 are the ones I'm getting a lot of calls from. I can't remember the 4th one off the top of my head. I think the 4th one is also a lot split for a PDR related thing. But 2 are pretty simple, 2 are complicated. I mean, if you can, we can do Valley View at the next meeting because you already talked about it back, at the last meeting and asked the engineer, and then you could consider, you could consider the Gary Fritz, who was at the last meeting, at the special meeting, and then the Mary Walker split, which is just deferring, it's only 1 split, and they don't intend to build it ever, deferring it to later. I also suggested to her, to keep things moving, that I can approve it with the assumption that she's going to build the road within 1 year, and hopefully if the ordinance changes in the meantime, or if she seeks a variance, she can always revise the permit. That's not an ideal thing, but then I was just, if you guys want to rather, spend your efforts on something else, that's a short-term solution for her, because she does not intend to build a house. The only thing that would happen is we would end up splitting a lot, but she cannot ever build a house until the private road issue will be resolved. So we're not losing. It would be a conditional approval. That way, you're at least tackling the 3 repeated recurring mistakes.
Of those 3, I would view Valley View as the most complex.
Yes, so that should be next meeting. Or the, actually, you know what? I don't know of the next meeting because I've been working with the timeline with the fire marshal and our engineer with regards to site inspections and, response letters and review letters with July 29th in mind. I don't think I can get those things ready for the next meeting. Mary Walker is ready to go.
But that's a simple one.
That's a simple,
That's a split drive.
right?
Let's plan on doing one of them at the regular meeting, one to try to do at the special meeting, but work on how we're going to deal with these
Okay.
private roads.
I'll work with you on prioritizing and then probably update at the next meeting.
So we're going to have a special meeting on July 29th at 7 p.m. Roads.
We can accommodate Mr. Westman. Could we schedule it so that you could be there?
The 29th.
No, I understand that. Do you have any alternative dates that might work?
How long are you going to be gone?
I think it's the 25th through the 5th, or 6th. You did it the second week in August, I know. Or before the 25th.
I think we looked at dates before the 25th.
There were 4 dates that were sent.
I'm wide open that week of the 22nd.
We had a ZBA meeting on July 23rd.
I can't do the 24th, I could do
22?
ZBA's problem. I could do the 22nd.
22 is good for me, 22 is good for you?
I think so.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I made plans because 29th was kind of agreed. Do you need me there?
It would go quicker.
It'll go quick.
We can stay with the 29th, it's just that I would hate to lose Mr. Westman's participation, that's all.
22nd is a little bit tight. We do have the ZBA meeting on the 23rd.
I'm confused, are you available 22 or no?
No. I'm gone 24th and 25th as well.
All right, I guess we're stuck with 29.
Mr. Westman, are you offended if we have a meeting without you on the 29th?
I don't have any choice.
I
I can provide, it's free and I can be talk about it, I can provide some input that way, obviously I can't vote.
I did offer to meet with Mr. Westman when he said none of the dates work and I had to do it on July 29th to, set up a meeting with him and
Okay.
then go over the applications.
It'll be the 29th at 7 p.m. then. Okay. Back to property inspector pay. When we did the budget, we did not include an increase in pay for the property inspector. He's currently getting $21 per hour. He has requested $23 per hour. Discussion. The $21 an hour was established in 2016.
And he hasn't asked for anything since. That's a quarter a year, so I'm in favor of it.
Is that a motion?
I would move to accept the increase in rates. How many hours do we have budgeted for him? When's that gonna
The
actually
change in the line item is about $700 a year.
Okay.
We don't need to make a budget amendment.
Good. I would move that we approve the increase for the property inspector from $21 to $23 per hour.
Second?
I'll support it.
Okay, further discussion.
So, John Sharp, you said that annual impact is 7, so theoretically, it's 350 or 400 for this year? Or you're talking about,
For the rest of this year.
it's 700?
No, annually, roughly. He's hourly, and he works more or less hours. He's actually working less hours because he's a police officer somewhere else. So we're not using as many hours as we have in the past. but last year it was about $7,000 for the whole year. And this is about 9.5%, you round off to 10, it's about $700 for a 12-month period.
Okay,
So it'll be less than 7 this year.
correct, yeah, I'm just trying to understand that.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Roll.
Weston?
Roll call. Aye.
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 Tony?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Sharp, you went to a meeting, we had the opportunity to opt out of having a designated assessor for Washington County.
Yeah, so Tony and I and Bill attended the joint assessors, Washtenaw County Assessors and Treasurers meeting. Equalization talked about this rule. I've had some subsequent correspondence with equalization. I would take this information in your packet as informational at this point. I'm not getting clear direction from the county that they want us to pass a resolution. They have two choices. As I understand the application form that's in your packet, the County Board of Commissioners could take this action on their own, or a majority of the municipalities in Washtenaw would have to submit their desire to opt out. Long story short, if a municipality in Washtenaw was having serious problems with assessing, and the state felt that they needed to have somebody step in, it is this assessor in waiting, I forget the exact title, but that would step in. And currently, we don't have one in Washtenaw. There's been an attempt to solicit one, but if you accept that responsibility, you're on the hook, but you don't get any pay until somebody calls you to action. So there's not a lot of drive for somebody to raise their hand and say they want to do it. We had a discussion about opting out. I thought that there was a consensus in the room that most municipalities, at least treasurers and assessors, were interested in opting out. That's not the feeling I'm getting from the county today. So I would take the information as for information only, and we may or may not take action on this at some future meeting. I would ask Tony if she has any other.
They've changed their minds then.
It doesn't seem like they have a path charted, in my opinion.
But this is just for review.
It's for your information right now. It may come across our table for action in the future.
Okay, in your package, you have a request based on our population for the Michigan Township Association of an annual dues of $7,318. They also are requesting, but not requiring for membership, a legal defense fund contribution of $219.54. If you opt to do both of those, it would be $7,537.54. We have benefited from the legal defense fund. They helped us in the Nixon Party Barn by filing a brief. It's up to you whether or not you wish to continue to be part of the MTA, which I would suggest you might want to be. And if you wish to do the legal defense fund or not, is entirely up to you.
I move that we pay MTA a total of $7,537.54.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded.
try and look it up in real time.
Just if you knew offhand.
I don't know off the top of my head now. There's something in here, I recall saying that they won't raise it more than 10%. But it was in this ballpark. If you need to know, I can look it up now. I can tell you tomorrow.
I can find out.
Okay.
Just curiosity.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Shelley?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Okay, deputy treasurer, deputy clerk appointments. The treasurer has the opportunity and requirement to appoint a deputy. The clerk has the opportunity and requirement to appoint their deputy. We just need to announce those. They do not require confirmation. The reason why we have to do this is our new clerk used to be the deputy treasurer, and the deputy clerk position became vacated when the clerk became vacant. So we need to hear both Tony's appointment and John Sharp's appointment. We don't need to confirm it, it just needs to be done.
I appointed Mrs. Donna Whitney to be the deputy clerk,
And she said yes.
and she said yes.
And she knew better. Mr. Sharp.
And I appointed Linda Savitsky, who had been my first deputy treasurer. And Linda has agreed to be the deputy on an interim basis until such time that a more long-term appointment is apparent or available.
She actually said yes.
I had to twist her arm, but she said yes.
Okay.
And both deputies have taken the oath of office. And both deputies are signers on our banks.
Okay, H, board policy for attorney's presence at ZBA meetings. The ZBA has been required by this township board to have at all their meetings counsel. It has been discussed at the ZBA and other places, I suppose, too, that there are instances where the attorney's not really needed. For example, an organizational meeting or something like that. Mr. Kleinsmith, would you weigh in on this policy?
Like you said, there's a lot of incidents on, when we're just doing a variance for side yard or something like that, that we really don't need an attorney there. We would like to have it so that, the planning commission has the right to request an attorney at their meetings if they so desire, and if they feel they need it. And we're feeling, ZBA is thinking that, it's a waste of township money to have one there at every meeting when it's not totally required or not really necessary. So we would like to have the opportunity to request one if it's needed or something, but not have one. I mean, we had one at our training session last month. We did get some good out of it, but it's not totally necessary.
we just want your opinion on whether you want to continue to spend this money or let us have the opportunity to request one if we need it.
Okay, comments from board members?
Yeah, so I was reading the minutes of the ZBA from May. I guess they're from May, so you would have had a June meeting that we don't have the minutes for, because here it says the board decided to continue with legal counsel at our meetings and decide later. So does that mean in June you had you talked about it again and decided you wanted the option? Is this different than what the minutes say?
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that this is on, we discussed it at the last meeting, and there's a couple of members who never voted on it. But a couple of members thought that they should continue with the legal counsel.
So there's mixed feelings on that.
We just wanted the board to weigh in on it, to see whether they still wanted to spend, felt that it was needed, and whether they wanted to spend the money on it.
Personally, I don't know how you would decide ahead of time when legal counsel is necessary or who would make that decision on the ZBA. So that would have to be something that would have to be discussed. But my understanding is that there is a bit of a change in the leadership right now at the ZBA, and that the attorney has been working with the ZBA to make sure that they clearly define the answers to the questions to make sure that we always have a legal case. If there's new leadership, I would want to kind of see that the new leadership facilitates making sure those questions get answered and documented thoroughly before we move the attorney out of there. I know that there was recently training, but I also know that not everybody at the ZBA went to it. So I know if you've been on the ZBA for a long time, it probably feels like you know what we do and we don't have to get training, but things change. And it's important, you know, when we do any job for a long time, we start to take shortcuts because we know how to get around things, or we do things quickly. We know, so we just go quickly. But I think that we have to avoid that kind of thing as a risk management activity. So I'm not against eliminating the attorney over time, but I think I would like to keep the attorney on just to make sure that the new leadership and the new team as it gels together gets that documentation down consistently.
So, I'm obviously on the ZBA. So one of the things that we had discussed, and the big reason why it came up was, this was a procedural meeting that we were at. And the board has said every ZBA meeting they need to be at. And so, not necessarily even saying, well, is this issue that we're going to be addressing something we need them for, but more of, if we have procedural meetings, do they have to be there? So that's something that could be looked at and say, at procedural meetings, do they have to be there? And the answer is probably no, because we can always bounce whatever we're going to put in the procedures against them or with them, that they don't have to be there to answer it right then. Now, if we're listening to a case, yeah, I would agree. You know, it's still one of those things, and then we could get to where we don't need them. But they have helped with the answers, basically putting it in the right format, making sure it can't be challenged, those kind of things. And so in those, when we're hearing something that's come before the ZBA, they should probably still be there. But if we have a procedural meeting that's just talking about the language that, you know, how we're going to conduct the meeting or something like that.
Okay, that's what procedural means.
Yeah,
Procedure is
yeah. I mean,
actually
we have like what, 4 meetings I think set on the calendar. Whether or not we meet for it or not, we decide if we need to meet, or the chair decides if we need to meet. Those aren't the ones that necessarily have somebody that's bringing something before the ZBA.
Right, okay.
And those meetings, if we have questions, we can always bounce it, you know, against the attorneys and say, hey, this is what we were thinking, is there any problems with that? that can be done with correspondence, not with them being there. Because it is expensive them being at those meetings to answer something that could be answered over email.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to continue having legal counsel when there are, in cases, action items, what have you, business items. I agree, procedural meetings, not probably necessary, I don't know what we can differentiate here, but I also have a comment related to the resolution, and would add, or suggest adding another whereas after the second one. I had a little heartburn with, rather than has been incorrectly completed, I may suggest deleting incorrectly, but then add a whereas, which would, my suggestion would be, whereas the township board desires to ensure its major actions are legal and procedurally correct, and proceeding on. I think that gives a little more context for why we're trying to do this.
Would you repeat that, whereas the township board desires?
To ensure its major actions are legal and procedurally correct, comma, and.
Is this document the existing, is this document the existing resolution where the underlined blue are the suggested changes?
Okay, looking at this resolution, first of all, it should be numbered 13-24, delete amendment to resolution 16-21, add Dan's third whereas, and where it says, now therefore it be resolved that the township board will not require council to attend meetings with no appeals on the agenda, and the township board will support the ZBA's request to have legal counsel attend meetings when there are appeals on the agenda, and leave everything else intact. The foregoing amendment is adopted. I wouldn't say that. The foregoing resolution is offered, 13-24 is offered by trustees such and such, and so on.
Can we go back? I think you might have flipped it, or I flipped it. The first one, now therefore it is resolved that the township board will require council to attend ZBA meetings with appeals on the agenda, right?
Okay, you could do it either way. I did it the opposite way, but yeah, okay.
With, yeah. And then the second one would be with no appeals.
Yeah. Because the ZBA always has some kind of business item.
Right.
It's a matter of whether their request.
I would like to say that I agree with what Shelley's opening remarks were, which is we've had a change in leadership. to want to change anything until after maybe we do a 6-month review. And of course, not all months are equal, right? You might have no hearings or 5 hearings. So maybe it shouldn't be on a time basis, but on a number of hearings basis. I don't feel a burning desire to make the change now, but I'm absolutely open to making the change after a period of demonstrated competence.
I agree with Mr. Sharp.
Okay. Other comments? Okay, no action is taken. We do have a draft if you need one. Okay, Dexter Historical Society request. This is addressed to Mr. Sharp. The Dexter was,
I don't know why it's addressed to me.
You got the money.
Yeah. The clerk is the one that writes the checks.
Only at their direction.
so they aren't real clear on exactly what they're gonna do with our $250 to help support their work. I would like a motion to, have them, do something for us to receive this money.
Yeah, are we?
Unilaterally, or do you want them to do it?
Well, when do they want the money?
Yesterday.
Okay, so then we better do it unilaterally.
I move that we pay the Dexter Area Historical Society to perform public relations services and record maintenance for Webster Township. And what I should say is I move to pay Dexter Area Historical Society $250 to do public relations and records maintenance for Webster Township.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll support.
Any further discussion? Another roll call. I don't know. We'll do Harms.
Aye.
I
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Wave representative.
Not it.
Our wave representative deserted us. Do we have suggestions for? Oh, you volunteered? Yeah.
Waving bar. Oh, I thought, Shelley, you were.
No,
8 o'clock in the morning.
Mrs. Whitney has expressed interest in doing that.
I move that we appoint Mrs. Donna Whitney to be our wave representative.
A second.
Discussion.
Hallelujah.
Those in favor of appointing Donna Whitney as our wave representative, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Donna.
Somebody put their hand over her mouth. Okay. Huron River Watershed Council, we have a request to pay our watershed council dues in the amount of $653.10. Is this something we wish to do?
I move that we pay the watershed dues in the amount of $653.00.
Support. Did they send us an invoice?
And an explanation of how they came up with it.
It's population, isn't it?
Yeah, it's based on population. I think I wrote down the or is it? You can probably print it out. Okay.
Just for reference, I didn't receive that electronically or.
Yeah, I don't think I have
Me either.
It was just, I think it was just tacked on at the very end.
Oh, I didn't make copies of it.
And we used it because of Dallas.
She's just been appointed, you know,
I'm fine, but I just wanted to make a comment that
she's almost hit the ground running.
We came with my desk this morning, and I made copies.
I have a copy of the invoice if you wish to see it.
I trust the entity.
Roll call again. Tony?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Correspondence. Tony, what do we have in our packet? Lucky us, huh?
Just bills. Bills for the attorney.
Okay. Any questions on that? Call to the public.
Here you are at 10 o'clock.
No lights on.
Jean Wallace, 03 Clifford Road. And I want to say thank you to all of you who made the effort to speak into your microphones, because there's nothing worse than sitting out here and not being able to hear when you're at the meeting for 3 hours. So thank you.
Other comments from public?
In Joshua, 4580 Farrell Road. A couple things. One of them is this chart that Sri made has 82% of the parcels by area are 5.01 or more acres. The problem with this is it's misleading because there's a lot of acres that are 5.01 or in that range, but would not be considered 5 acres due to the right-of-way. So this doesn't actually show what areas if you say 5 acres or more, you can have animals. This actually doesn't show you a good distribution of that because there are many parcels that are a little above 5 acres and wouldn't be included. So I think a more accurate thing would be more helpful in our minds when we're thinking about what things will and will not be affected. The second thing I wanted to say is there was that survey that Sri put out, and people put their opinions about things, and I think it would be really good for all of you as board members, especially in an election year, to publicize your opinions about this issue. I think that a lot of the residents want to know what you guys think, and especially for those of you who think your opinions are more popular opinions, you should put your name to it. Don't just have an anonymous survey show what your opinion might be. The other thing on the animal issue as a whole. If the township's rules are more strict than the Right to Farm Act, there are two options that are going to happen to people, right? If someone wants to have 1 pig for their family, and the Right to Farm Act would allow them, if they're commercial, to have more pigs, but the township says, no, you can't do that. Well, they're going to either, one, they don't know about the Right to Farm Act, and then the township is saying, you can't do this when there would be a route that they could go forward and they're ignorant of, and it seems problematic if the township is legislating things hoping for ignorance of people's rights. Or they become commercial, right? If I have 1 pig and I want to have that for my family, but sorry, I can only do that if I'm commercial, well, I'll get 2 pigs or 3 pigs and I'll sell 2 of them and keep 1 for my family. All of the nuisance issues, smell, sightliness, animals getting on other people's properties. All of those things are worse when people have more animals. And with that, even the examples that everyone uses when it talks about these are the problems of having unrestricted animals. Like it was mentioned, 10 pigs, right? Someone's gonna have 10 pigs. Well, guess what? Those types of operations that cause those larger nuisances are generally gonna be commercial operations. Someone isn't getting 10 pigs for their own personal consumption, right? So I think that's an important distinction to make is whatever rule you guys make on animals, it is only going to be restricting non-commercial uses, and if it's more restrictive, or much more restrictive, than what the Right to Farm Act allows, people are just going to move towards being commercial. I know I know a lot of families that have animals and have already thought about the fact that if they have to have more animals to become commercial so that they can use a right to farm defense, they're willing to do so. I think that's an important thing. That's all.
Thank you. Other comments?
Hello, Mike D'Angelo again. I only have one short thing, because you were talking about, when they were talking about how to figure out the area that you are going to allow animals in. And they were talking, and she was talking about accessory structures. I think the only thing I would say is, I don't think you should count accessory or limit it based on accessory structures you're going to use the animals in. If that makes any sense. Okay. That's
Like a barn.
right.
They have a term for that. Other comments from the public? Okay, seeing none. Concerns of board members?
I have something, Mr. Kingsley. Donna, Mrs. Whitney, and Mrs. Savitsky have received phone calls that amount to...
Can you speak into the microphone?
Sure. That amount to complaints from our residents regarding solicitors. And apparently in the past, there's been a policy, I don't know if it's a policy or resolution, I did not look it up,